Xbox's Game Pass is a fairly inexpensive subscription service that gives you access to a huge library of games. The best part, for many, is that you don't even need an Xbox to use it, as it's also accessible on PC, phones, and smart TVs. I've been out of the loop with the recent boom of arena shooters, but since giving Xbox Game Pass a try, I've been playing all sorts of them. So here's a look at some of today's retro-inspired shooter campaigns, available on Xbox Game Pass. Proteus. This is a very Doom-inspired shooter that kicks the violence up to 1,000. It's like playing a deliberately exaggerated parody of Doom, like one of those games you'd see an edgy teenager playing in a sitcom. Which is a good thing, by the way. This game kicks ass. In Proteus, you get a constant feeling of being absurdly powerful. Each of your weapons do a great deal of damage. Each has a secondary fire too, which I found myself using about as often as the primaries. Just shoot in the direction of those pesky demons and watch as their itty-bitty pieces go all over the place. You've probably noticed the weapons are pixelated. This is the style they went for, which pays homage to popular sprite-based shooters of the past. The enemies are actually sprites by default in Proteus, but if it's not to your liking, you can change them to 3D models in the options. The level design of Proteus is one of its most remarkable qualities. Despite its maze-like design, I could always quickly figure out what to do and how to push forward. Even still, I kept my eyes peeled for its many secrets and interesting set pieces that surrounded its handcrafted design. Proteus looks, sounds, and plays great. Therefore, it gets a strong recommendation from me. Shadow Warrior 3. Before getting into this, I figured I'd mention the Definitive Edition downgrade for Xbox Series S players. This game used to run at 60 frames, but with the definitive update, they've increased the visual fidelity, so now it runs at 30 frames, and it's quite unstable. This is an issue I have with the digital age of gaming. The version I play is entirely up to them. Bummer. Nonetheless, Shadow Warrior 3 is loads of fun. Its gunplay is very punchy, which is consistent across many of these retro-inspired shooters. It's pretty much a requirement now. I dig it. The story is rather interesting, though often pushed to the side. The focus is definitely its shooting. Still, there's plenty of banter with your little companion between most fights. Whether it's the dialogue or the shooting you're into, it's all equally as ridiculous here. I've heard people describe this game before as Doom Eternal, but you can turn off your brain. Okay, sure, it does share a number of concepts. You can glory kill enemies to increase your health, and the enemies are essentially gore pinatas. One thing you can't compare with Doom Eternal is the ammo capacity. At any given time, you'll probably have a good supply on you, so during active battles, feel free to use the same weapon for several minutes. Shadow Warrior 3 gets fairly difficult a couple hours in, so I can't quite say it's turn off your brain levels of ease. Be prepared to dash out of harm's way near constantly. I wish I could give you more comparisons with the rest of the series, but Shadow Warrior 3 is the most I've played of it. So far, at least. I should get around to the other two. In development, the devs must have been playing a lot of Serious Sam 2. The parallels are uncanny sometimes, even down to its locations. If you've got Xbox Game Pass and enjoy these sorts of games, then I'd definitely say give this one a look. It's also available on other platforms, as is every other game in today's list. How about those exclusives, Microsoft? Roboquest. This is a cel-shaded roguelite arena shooter. Not usually into these myself, but Roboquest is special. The story goes like this. In the future, our species is struggling to survive. A young scavenger finds a guardian robot in the desert and takes it home. She then repairs it because she believes that with this guardian by her side, she might be able to help save mankind. Yeah, I don't quite get it either, but the point is, you play as that guardian robot, and you're gonna go kick some robot ass. You'll be fighting ground units, stationary turrets, drones, and eventually bosses. As is standard for roguelites, you start without much, and will continue upgrading your character up until you're dead. When an arena is finished, you're given the chance to restore health, and swap your existing weapons out for something new, if you like. You'll eventually be able to buy gadgets that further expand the game. Once you get the fanny pack, you'll be able to hold 3 weapons instead of 2. And yes, there is a weapon limit, but I never felt like that hurt the experience, since you'll likely be swapping them between fights regardless. The gunplay isn't as punchy as some others of this sort, but I feel that fits better with the cartoony, sort of lighthearted approach this game takes. And honestly, that absence helped me to pay better attention to the high-octane background music. This helped me to feel pumped, even during those dull moments where I couldn't find the last enemy. But that never lasts for long, because after all, the arenas are quite small, and you're closed within these areas during an active battle. There's a lot of smaller details that I liked, such as being able to jump on top of enemy robots to destroy them Super Mario style. And the ability to grind on rails is super helpful for avoiding overwhelming fights, or just to get somewhere else quicker. This game is really addictive. In fact, whenever I finish this video, I'm probably gonna go and play more. Metal Hellsinger. This is equally an arena shooter as it is a rhythm game. If that's not something you're into, well, you might as well skip this segment, because I've heard some are dismissing it for that reason alone. But I was open to the challenge. After all, it's an exciting new subgenre for FPS, and I do enjoy some metal here and there. The story is pretty wild. You play as a lost soul in hell who got her voice taken away. She's then locked up, but breaks free and starts wreaking havoc across hell. All the while you've got this skull in your pocket narrating everything.
I remember this place like it was yesterday. Wish I didn't.
The presentation is remarkably similar to a Painkiller game, so much so that I was surprised this wasn't made by the same devs. So you may be asking, how does a rhythm-based FPS game work? Well, you have to shoot on the beat. If you fail to do so, you won't inflict nearly as much damage. Some attacks won't even register. As your killing spree increases, more intense layers of the soundtrack begin to play. From the warm-up, all the way to the vocals. It's a really neat experience. One thing shared in common with most games in today's list is their excellent adaptation to the controller's rumble feature. In Metal Hellsinger, you've got these revolvers, right? When the player reloads them, you can feel it at the bottom of the controller, with each bullet making its impact. I found this to assist in my immersion with the game's rhythm mechanic. If this game wasn't based on rhythm, I think I'd still be able to enjoy it. The aesthetic is cool, the weapons are fun, and the music is awesome. Though I will admit, it's the uniqueness of this gameplay style that drew me, and no doubt countless others, into actually playing it. The whole experience does take some time to get used to, but once you've got it, you're gold. So much so, that you might go to play other games in the same way, and then realize, oh, I don't have to shoot on beat anymore. Back 4 Blood. So this isn't exactly like the other games in the list, but it honors the old school run and gun formula. Based on the popular game Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood aims to be its modern equivalent. The game's marketing held on to that claim tightly. The reception of this game is mixed, so what's the deal? I decided to give it a try one night with my friend who was playing it on PS5. Yep, it supports crossplay, and that's always a blessing. Then as we began playing, I started to understand some of the criticisms I've heard. I feel there's too much to go over for a short analysis, but it's a fairly basic interpretation of a Left 4 Dead game. The gunplay? Well, it looks and sounds more realistic than ever, but there's very little personality to it. Weapon animations look twitchy, and the zombie gore mechanics are just lame. Now look, none of this is to say that the game was a low-effort project. In fact, there's a fair bit of quality here. The level design is very appropriate for the type of game this is. And shooting down countless sprinting zombies in large environments with a friend or two? I mean, hell yeah, that makes for a good time. How about these environments? I mean, damn! These lighting effects are beautiful. I wanted to mention this one boss that occasionally showed up in one of the levels, and returned later on. That's very House of the Dead. I like it. I was about to write, this is still probably the best Left 4 Dead style of game on modern consoles right now. But then I saw the trailer for John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, and now I'm not so sure. So, what about Doom 64? Coinciding with the release of Doom Eternal, this came as a surprise to many after being neglected for so many years. Since release, it solidified its spawn on marketplaces as another classic entry in the franchise. You may not be as familiar with this one. It was first released on the Nintendo 64, developed by Midway Games, now remastered on Night Dive's KEX3 engine, and boy is it smooth. This game looks incredible on my tiny 32-inch TV. I can only wonder what it looks like when blown up on a 4K screen. Sadly, there's no multiplayer options here, which would have been a neat addition, although I do feel that Doom 64 is a better experience solo. Rare opinion, perhaps, but playing this alone at night with good speakers is one hell of a spooky old-school experience. Now, if you'll allow me to go off for a bit about why I think Doom 64's presentation is masterful. Despite playing Doom 3 first, I've always felt that this was the scarier game. Perhaps that's because it's less of a traditional horror experience. Instead, Doom 64's environment feels remarkably desolate and unsettling. Roaming this facility, I get a constant, unnerving instinct that I'm somewhere I really shouldn't be. There's nobody here with me besides the giant hostile demons lurking around the corners, and strange, indecipherable sounds heard throughout the area. I always interpreted these environments as really humid and uncomfortable, probably from all the warm colors illuminating its various surfaces. There's disgusting meat pools all over. I bet this place smells awful. Now just imagine being stuck in here. I'm just glad to be behind the TV, not the shotgun. In terms of gameplay, compared to the originals, the shooting feels the same. It isn't nearly as fast-paced. I could more easily compare it with Doom 3. Well, the second half of Doom 3. There are many short puzzles in the game, nothing too obscure. You'll always figure out what you're supposed to do eventually, though it can take some moments of pondering. That's good level design. So, would you guys be interested in more coverage of the Game Pass library? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to hear more from me in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. See you next time!